A very good afternoon to one and all present. I, Shubhata Jagdare, on the behalf of P.E.S. Modern College of Pharmacy Nigdi, welcomes you all to short-term training program sponsored by AICTE on innovations in effective teaching, learning, pedagogy, and research skill development. I welcome our honorable guest, Mr. Arun Jangda. A very good morning to you, sir. He will be delivering a lecture on research education system in India and USA and its need for today's researchers. Sir has successfully completed MBA at University of Massachusetts in 2012, followed by MS in Biological Sciences in 2006. Presently, he is Associate Director at Takeda Pharmaceuticals, Lexington, USA. He previously worked as research scientist in many reputed companies like Genzyme, Pfizer, and Anlin Pharmaceuticals. Sir is Technical Operation Leader in Multimodality CDM and Combination Product Assembly with 16 plus years of experience in drug substances and drug product. He also received an Spot Award for successfully full finish lab move with indefined budget and time frame in 2012. Sir, may I request you to start our session? I'll making you host.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, thank you for this opportunity. And I would say that thanks to Vittal and Professor Visukar, and as well as Principal Chaudhary, and I think the moderator for this today's talk. So I would say that rather than presentation, I would say it's more kind of a discussion. So I just put together a few slides as a talking point, but I would welcome like a two-way discussion at this point. So let me start. Just a second. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. I think you can call me Arun. That's fine. Don't need to call me sir. So I have a few talking points we just want to walk through. And after that, definitely, I think the more important part is like that discussion at the end we want to have. And at the same time, I would encourage if there are some burning questions while going through my slide, please feel free to interrupt and ask those questions. So these are the few discussion topic points. I know I may not be expert in like differentiating the points between both sides of education system, but this is a reflection of my experience all the way graduating from pharmacy school, I would say Government College of Pharmacy from India. And as you can see, I was born and brought up in India. And then after that, I moved here for higher studies and did different education. And then at the decided to work here. So this is my reflection of experience. It's not about like, I would say there may be some criticism there, but my only intent is to provide the feedback based on my experience. And as well as I think we want to make a change or try to make some changes in the system where it could be helpful for our, I think, future activities, or as well as improving our education system. So I have one slide where really at very high level, I put together a few points where we can just walk through the education system between India and USA. And just for a financial perspective, I have put together one or two slides, and this is like I got it some information from some public article or newspaper where we will have a kind of bird's eye view where we'll see like how different countries are spending on R&D as well as their, I would say, nationally for India, I have put together one slide where we can see how overall R&D expenditure by sector in India. And then for approach, there are a few slides. One is really high level, so that means top down. And the most important part is bottom up. And what I meant is like how, especially this community where you guys are trying to put your efforts toward like how you want to address this issue or gap or problem. So that's where mostly we'll be spending our time. And then I have one slide where I would say that I would just name it as a cultural shift. So we can definitely discuss a few points there as well. So if this is okay, I will move to next slide. So I will start with I think the quote from Professor Jayant Narlikar. I think he doesn't need an introduction, everybody knows him. I think once upon a time he said that the reason of, or I think a decline of science in India is the lack of experimentation as a part of learning experience. And I completely agree with that. And that's what even my personal experience reflects. So let's see just a second. Few points here. So in education system, I would say for both India and USA are equally effective. And we have on the both sides created really good leaders. And there are a lot of examples like I have seen within India, there are very successful leaders and sometimes Indian people migrated to US, they've been a very successful leader. And
राम राम अरे राम राम गे यार नहीं बोले तू
excuse me if you are not
Excuse me, Arun sir, can you mute to all from there?
Okay.
Yeah. Mute to all.
Yeah, I'm trying to. So let's. We need flexibility from a UGC point of view as well for the especially syllabus and coursework, because I know the UGC has done a really great job where they put together a very deep and thorough syllabus, but at the same time, world is changing at the fast pace. And I will give you some example at the end. What is the difference? What we have learned and nowadays going on in the world. So that's where we need, like in the US, mostly universities are autonomous and they have a structure for their syllabus. But I think important thing is they always get that flexibility. So I know from my experience, in every class, like whenever, take example, like whenever we are studying like some field like in a biotech, immunology, or there were some courses where we are studying about even a biochemistry, and as well as there were some courses where related to cell culture or cell line development or whatever the course is there, they will always include a research paper as in their topic. And that means what they do, like they keep 10 to 20% of their syllabus open for flexibility. And every semester or year, they keep updating it. And that's way they keep with the speed of the innovation or research happens in the real world. So that way they learn from a history. There is a lot of historical knowledge, but top of that, every year they keep updating so that all the students get the first-hand knowledge or experience of what's going on in the real world. And other thing, I feel like there should be some flexibility at like moving around the stream, what I mean is like going from art to science, science to commerce. So in India, I think this is something where I feel like after your 10th, once you take a path, like if you go to science art, it's very difficult to come back after your degree. If you have completed, for example, BCom, and if you want to be an engineer, I think there are very limited options. In the US, I think they have a very open, I think, accessibility to different options. The only one thing, you have to finish their prerequisite. For example, one time I was literally tempted to get a degree in architect in US. So, and you can imagine if in India you are a pharmacist and you go and tell, oh, I want to be architect, no one will entertain you that thought. So that's something I think would be good. I know recently, I think in the Modi government, there were some changes were made. I don't know the details, but I think now even you can take a diploma instead of degree. Those are really all good indication. And that's the way we should want our education to be, very flexible, and rather, I would say, catering to today's need, not just like going by the whatever we have established 30, 40 years back and keep following that. And other thing is, from a top down, I would say we need research funding should be based on performance. So I can give you example here. The way things work here, even though you have a job at a government institute or somewhere else, but your performance is always measured on how many new projects you bring in and what kind of funding you get from outside. So if you are a professor and teaching in the university, you can keep your regular job, whatever the teaching subject you have. But on top of that, if you really want, you can establish your lab and get outside funding. And that way, university like gives you some reward and remuneration accordingly. So this is a slide you can see. I got it from a National Science Board, and as you can see here, I hope you guys can see my cursor. So this is a US where it's on the top definitely, and they've been really investing a lot of money in R&D from I would say, and this is only screenshot for last 17 years, but there is no doubt like US has invested a lot of money in R&D from long time. And after that, you see this is a European Union chart where it goes from pretty much following the US trend. But one thing I would say, and that is that we should learn from our neighboring country is China. As you can see, their graph is in R&D. It took a really steep curve when it goes after 2005. So that way they are also pumping a lot of money toward or resources toward the R&D. And other thing, and India, that we are following our steady trend. And I think this is something like at higher level. I think our leaders are available. Excuse me for that. Our leaders are aware of this, and as well as I think there are a lot of other factors goes into before we want to make these changes. But I think right now India is in that stage where at least mentally we can get ready, and once the resources are aligned, then we can definitely look toward this spending, increase in the spending money in R&D. This is our India national R&D expenditure by sector. So you see mostly money comes from central government, and there are private sector and state and as well as public industry. So one area I would focus on definitely is the public sector industry. And that's where I think that change or impact can be made quickly. And that is, I think, within the control of the community, what we are talking today, like all professors as well as researchers in university and as well as the students. So now let's discuss about bottom up. And what I meant is, I think this is the most important part of the discussion where we can have a walkthrough and as well as discuss that how this bottom-up approach could work. And I think in that regard, the most important thing I would say, like, there are really like this activity, what you guys have conducted or doing at this point, this is really a good initiative. And this kind of initiative, first we needed, and these initiatives definitely will help. First step is try to understand where are the gaps, and then try to fix or try to address those gaps. So first thing is definitely, unless we don't understand the problem or we don't admit the problem, sometimes we understand the problem, but we don't want to admit it as well. So that is the first step. And I think this kind of forum is really good where we try, or you guys are at least putting an effort to try understand the problem, and let's get some thoughts how we can fix it. Other thing I would suggest from bottom up is having an advisory board at high level and as well as mid level. And what I meant by that, I know usually all the institute and as well as university, they have a board with different directors, and I'm assuming that those directors come from a different background. Like take an example of Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. If you see their board, it's really very, I would say, highly regarded, renowned scientists, businessmen, everyone is in the board. And even I think in modern college, that should be the structure. And at the same time, I would say that try to find an advisory board at mid-level, or at least a level where like the first-hand researcher, professor, teacher should have access to them. Because this is the most important thing. Like I know at the top level, all these renowned distinguished dignitaries, they have a lot of experience, but they may not have that much time to really come down and share their experience. So in that case, it would be good idea where you can form informal advisory boards, like the people who are really motivated to contribute toward the science and as well as the education system. Like example, the people, I would say, from my perspective, maybe people like me or anybody else who are willing to invest some time, and they are at the level where it's not too high, and as well as it's not at really very, they are not in the beginning of their career, so they can really give you some advice and at least spend a quality time with the researcher or as well as the professor, where they can share their experience. And other is what I call a reverse brain drain, like some other countries are doing. So I don't know if you guys are following or not, but I think there are some countries like China has some government sponsored program and as well as private industry. So what they do, like they took really a good initiative to bring back some of the talent, like I can say people like me who has left the country a few years back, and if they want to come back, they will make a special program for them so that they can bring back that talent back. And that is what the reverse brain drain is. I don't know if anybody has any question or anything, or otherwise I will move to next slide. And in the bottom-up approach, one important topic, and I think that is where I feel like you guys at this point can make right away. And what I meant is here is the effective utilization of university or college resources. So I know in India also we have that structure where professor can do research and as well as they can provide some experience, or I would say have some good project activities as university or school labs. I feel like, as per my understanding, that in India, that is not very well utilized. If you see in the US, this is the biggest difference where university or schools, I would say, here university they call school. So they work very actively with industry. They are very much involved, and it works in a, it's kind of a really good arrangement they have, where industry sponsors some project. That means they can get really their work done with the less amount of money, and at the same time it happens like if back, but they will really working on something where it's a current, or at least the industry is trying to get something in the market soon. So that way they are building their resume, and as well as they are getting that experience from the ongoing activities in the industry. And this is really a win-win situation for university or colleges as well, because once if they do really good work, they can get IP right or royalties. So there are so many examples in US, like where some universities, they really get a hefty amount of financial benefit from this royalties. One next point I would say here, that it's my observation that when things come to publication, I know, as what I understand, in India there are requirements for, I think, PhD students to have a certain number of publication, all that. So I they can publish if sometimes they fail. So it's not always that there would be always a publication out of it, or some, and this publication requirement is, I think they need to have some flexibility. And the reason I'm saying that rather than for a publication, we should focus on good research and then publication, because we should train our student, or I would say the future generation, is focusing on research and publication. I know publication is your reward, or that's what the recognition you get out of it. Excuse me. We should focus on the research in a way like that is going to, I think, the fundamental level, and you have to make it very conceptually clear, because your focus should not be that, oh, I want a publication, that's why I want to do research. Actually, the real story should be other way around. And I have this one short and simple slide here. It's really a lot about, I think, the cultural difference, at least I have seen. One thing I would say that we need this cultural shift, like for mistake or errors, I would say. So what does I meant by that is, we should not be judged by our mistakes, or rather I will say how many times you have done the correct things. There should be always a room. If someone makes a mistake, they should be allowed to give a second, third chance, like including in your, I would say, the college lab experiment to everything. People should not be penalized or punished. Like if something goes wrong, or they do, or something they do wrong, or either do wrong, it should be in a way like those mistakes should be taken as a lesson learned. I can give you my example. When I was a teaching assistant here in the University of Massachusetts, that there were like, I was conducting a lab, like there were, take example where 20 students, they were doing their experiment. So whenever anybody make a mistake or did something differently, I never said that, oh, you made a mistake. My statement was always like, oh, you made it interesting. And I know one time, like Arun, why you are telling me I made it interesting? I pretty much screwed up here. So I gave him or her example is like, see, now there are 20 students, they are working on the same thing. You are the one who's doing something differently, or it happened to be differently. So now you are getting a special attention from me. And what does that mean is like all other students, what they are doing, I know what could be the output. But in your case, since you took a different approach, you made a mistake or mistake happened, whatever the reason is there, I'm not going to be subjective here. I'm going to be objective. And what I meant is like, now I am more curious to know what happens next because of this change or because of this mistake. Let's put it that way. So that should be the thought process or approach. And when I try to grade them, it's not about where I'm telling them like, hey, you made a mistake or not. I would definitely grade them based on what was their approach, what they thought about it, and sometimes even you can judge them on how honest they are telling you about their mistakes. We need to create a culture where like people should be coming forth with openly with their mistakes, not hiding them. And that's the best way you can create a fundamental good research culture. And it includes everywhere. I think people, even at the higher level, if someone fails in their business, they should not be always treated as a cheater or something because there are things like everyone plans for the success, but things doesn't go in the right way. So, but people should be looking into detail and see that, okay, is there really intentionally they wanted to do some foil thing or it happened to be a wrong thing. So that's how we should be like assessing everything around us, or as a professor, you guys should be dealing with students. And I think in that case, I would say I might have already covered this point is the concept and content rather than just presentation. Because I don't know, maybe Professor Vishwakar and Dr. Vittal may remember one time, I don't know, we were in the same batch when we were doing a lab or not. I remember it was almost like now I feel like more than 20 years back, where I have some pharmaceutical experiment and I was not right now. They will make a nice label and everything so presentable. And sometimes the professor even didn't look into the formulation, actual formulation, or even they will not open the container and try anything, or they will not even, that's like not fair. You are just looking at this someone's label and notebook and you are just saying, oh, you guys can make it. So that way your student or talent or the real concept or content, not just presentation. Because if you start to grade your student just based on the presentation, if you are in the marketing, presentation has its own importance. But as a teacher or professor, you should be always looking at this fundamental level where like looking at the content, not just, so that way you can create that culture. Like the way they train them on their day-to-day activity, that they should able to make their decision on spot. So that way, I think you guys, if someone is really interested, they can really get some good books and see the difference of what is difference between the mentor and coaching. So usually I take approach of first you have to mentor, you have to spoon feed someone who's looking or seeking some help, drive their own decisions. So once you coach them and you train how to think, how to solve the problem, how critically think about situations, then they will try to start making their own decisions. And after a while, then really you have to not invest time for their career path. So that should be the approach. You should ask them a question whenever they are taking help for mentorship, rather than telling them straight away, like, hey, do this, you should be asking a question in a coaching way where you should be driving decision from them rather than just providing decision to them. Okay, I think I may be coming towards the end of my slides. And this is one example I say, especially from our biotech field, that so nowadays it's really a good thing is because of this information and technology, we have really good access to all the information at our fingertip. And I think right now I think this conference is a good example where I'm sitting in Boston, most of the team members are sitting in India, and some maybe sitting somewhere else, and we are all getting together and talking about, and it's and pretty much it's free, right? So this is really, we should exploit this information technology, and I think we should speed up to get the information about for new therapies. I know we have learned a lot of tetracyclines, cephalosporin, first generation, third generation, or whatnot. But now, if you ask me, there is lots of activity ongoing in the biotech world, especially in gene therapy and cell therapies. So that is where I think some of the professor can approach us, people who are working in that field, or either you can take the approach where you can go and join some scientist community or read really good research paper, like try to follow Nature or any other good standard papers where it doesn't hurt. You just go to some FDA website, have approved last year or year before, and try to learn about those drugs, and you can share that knowledge with your team. So that way your students are up to the speed. They just don't know, they not only know that historical information about that fundamental knowledge they need, but at the same time, at least on in advanced world, especially with the new therapies. So maybe I would say now I will switch to my last slide before I end my presentation. So I think the take home message here is we need an application oriented higher education. We really have a good education system. There is a lots of talent that just need a little shift. And that shift is really a big shift. It will not come in a day or two. But I think overall, I would say, if you ask me to summarize in one sentence, I would say definitely India needs an application-oriented education system. So after this, I would proceed to my last slide in presentation. So I would like to thank you, Principal Dr. Arun Jangda, and as well as Vittal and Professor Visokar, and my moderator. Thank you. So now I would suggest that I will open a forum for the questions. I don't know how many minutes we have. Okay, we have 20 more minutes. So I will start the.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a wonderful session. Now the session is open for question and answer. If anybody wants to ask question, kindly DM in chat box. Thank you so much, sir, for having me as a host of the session. I would like to summarize our session. So, by the needs and ways for the research education system in India and USA, we should see that by the gross expenditure of 2017 of USA, India, and many other countries, we can see that India is steady on scale on the gross expenditure graph. So by that, we should say that we need to pull up our socks, and we should we should get ready to increase our steady state graph to an exponential level, and which is we can do it, sir, We have so much talent and research work to present, but there are some lack of ups and downs. So yes, we should definitely do our best, sir. Sir, now I kindly request you to accept a virtual bouquet and certificate on behalf of our principal, Dr. P.D. Chaudhary, sir, and STTP coordinator, Dr. Vitthal Chopre, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I think I would say definitely, as you brought up a point, even and was one of intent was showing those graphs. Like if you see, especially in India, like there is only I think 5 to 6% contribution coming from private sector, and that's where I know at the government level you cannot like this community cannot go and make the changes to the country economy in like the economical contribution in day one, but if you go and try to actively approach some private industry and try to, I would have those business relationship established with them, eventually you will start getting some work from them. And that's where I think maybe this school, or I would say modern college, can play a very leader role where they can establish that platform. I know you guys are already doing, but you have to come up with a mechanism where you can really very well utilize this. And thank you for your kind appreciation through virtual bouquet. I know if we come in person, that would be different experience. But I think you guys have set up this platform where, at least from my perspective, I would say I'm happy to contribute to what I have learned through my journey.
Thank you so much, sir, for a valuable.
Sir, Arun, yes, sir, Arun sir, just excuse me. There is a question in the chat box for the students. Okay, the PG scholar students. So, sir, any special facilities from the US government to carry out the research work there?
Yes. So here, actually, if you follow NIH, National Institute of Research, National Institute, and there were that spends a lot of money in our like the research area of medicine and biology and as well as biotech. And I think there is another big institute is DARPA, and that's mostly related to defense activity, because if you maybe you can just Google, US spends a lot of money on their defense. So DARPA spends a good amount of research activity and money. So those are the big institute where they spend a lot of money on research. And definitely when things come to DARPA, defense, and those things are really very, I would say, secluded, and they have a very good control. Anybody cannot go and contribute there. But when things come to NIH research, they really encourage, and there is an open platform where every professor from university can really get a grant, and if their grant is expected, they can contribute toward.
Can everyone tell what is trolling?
Okay. Sir, I want to give some example. In India, for the teacher, AICTE, UGC, DST, DBT. Okay, so they are the funding agencies are there. They give the funding as a motivational to the teachers, especially the example of the COVID-19. So DST have on their call for, or they call the proposal for those teachers or those researchers are interested to carry out the project over the COVID-19 regarding some medicines or vaccine. So they are ready to funding. So are there such kind of the facilities in the US for the India? Means US are give the funding to the Indian teachers?
So that's a good question. So if you see, there are government sponsored, but as well as a private. So in some area, you see Bill Gates Foundation, they invest a lot of money in developing nation, especially about infectious disease. And so those are some good, I think, non-profit organization where they are willing to. And I know sometime back, I interacted with some folks as well. They were like through Singapore, there were some firms where they money in research in India as well. since we are from the medicine field, one area I would say where all developing nations should focus on the research for antibiotic resistance. So that area, I think, really need immediate attention. Reason I can tell you specifically, if you ask me, that definitely, but now if you see, and especially I can talk about US, I would say that the most of research are happening for cancer and as well as a lot of orphan diseases and other things. So there were only few companies were doing research in antibiotic or infectious disease. I know some few years back, maybe 10, 15 years back, AstraZeneca was doing, Novartis was doing, and there were some other companies. But now those companies are not paying that much attention. So that way, you can imagine, like, you down the lane, it will create a big problem if we don't have a really good antibiotics. So nowadays, because it's not developed nations problem, so they are not focusing on, or either rather than problem, I would say it's not that much lucrative for money. I think it's all commercial or business driven. So I think that's one area where I would say that even Indian government or any other developing nation should pay special attention to, like, doing a research in antibiotics. And I think if you guys are interested, maybe you guys think in that way where you can come up with some areas where you can do research in antibiotics. And I believe Gate Foundation, or there are other multiple foundations, they are interested to pour in some money in that direction. And that way, like I think COVID is really, I think, Vithal, you brought up a good point. See, COVID is really a good example where in this pandemic situation, everybody got affected and equally got affected. So I can say that there are a nation like US or any other nations, they are ready with a lot of modern techniques, but when things come to infectious disease or something like that, we don't have that proper infrastructure. And this gives a good example to the entire community, like this infectious disease is also a serious problem. It's not about just you are focusing on cancer, diabetes, or any other, I would say, diseases. There are plenty of them. So that's where I think, I'm hoping this is a good lesson to the entire world. And I think that paradigm will shift. People will start paying attention to all this research area.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sir, yes. Sir, Rohini Kolle madam is asking the question to you. Okay. So yeah. how can anyone get a research assistant in the USA?
So if you want to just come for the research assistant, so if you have a PhD, then there is a program in US what called student exchange program. So they invite, and this is very, I would say, established and commonly used. They invite student on J1 visa. So you can come here for a few years. And I think that is a program where university gets a funding under student exchange program. That means the professor or the university is forced to hire a person from outside US. So if you look for those kind of positions where they are under, I would say, student exchange program, definitely you have a really good opportunity. And if you are not like you haven't done your PhD yet, like someone like me or who just done a bachelor's or master's, I think for them the best way is they need to apply for some, I think, education degree, and then if you get in here, after that definitely you can get some research assistant. There are some schools, or university, they collaborate with Indian Institute, and that's where you can get some research assistantship as well. But I think that's something need to happen at the university level first, because you just go and individually approach as a student, you may not get that much traction.
One more question is there. So from Padmaja Kore madam, that is a sir. Is there a scholarship for the PhD students, especially PhD students?
Yes. So I think not only PhDs can get a scholarship, but she's asking a question in a way like want to do PhD in the US. That's what I'm assuming. So because so apply and there is a competition, it comes with it, but there is a good option like you will get a scholarship in your PhD, and as well as sometime even you can get a scholarship for your master's degree as well.
Thank you so much for a valuable answer, sir. Attendance link has been shared in a chat box. Link for feedback and quiz will be open from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Our next session will be conducting on 20th of March by Dr. Seema Dande on topic collaborative and cooperative learning in choice-based credit system. Hereby announce that today's session is over. Take care, stay safe. See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Arun sir, for spending your valuable time with us.
No, it's in my honor. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me, and as well as this opportunity. I felt glad that at least I got connected with you guys in this forum. Thank you.
Sir, what I'm now in USA currently?
Right now it's 6:30 a.m. means morning.
So means we are disturbed to you on your stream, na? At
No, it's fine. It's fine. I think when I talked to you and Professor Viswar, I said, okay, I can take that much pain for one day. And I think I would say that that from my side, I would be always delighted and happy to contribute anywhere if you guys need, I would say, any help. And let's see if sometime if visit India, I don't mind to spending some time with you guys. I would be always delighted to meet you guys in person as well. So let's see if possible, maybe sometime when because it's been almost like 10, 20 years, I have a kind of disconnected from all this education system, India education system. And now I feel like I may be in the position that I can contribute toward the field and at the same time want to get back to the roots.
Yes. And I would like to inform my participant that we got very help from was suffering from the cancer. Okay, and as well as one guide experience as well as the few financial support also. Now she's getting the good and she's getting the record from the cancer. Okay, so on the behalf of P.E.S Society, Modern College of Pharmacy, on the behalf of all faculty and my all teachers from all over Pune University and India also, we like to thanks for that help to the pharmacy students. So now she's recovering from cancer especially. Special thanks to Arun sir to take the initiative to contribute some financial support also.
No, thank you. Thanks to you guys. You guys are taking those initiatives. I think from our side, we did whatever we can, but I think you guys are taking the leadership and that's why it's happening. So you should deserve a really big thank and appreciation from everyone.
Yes, sir. Yes. So, sir, if you permit, shall we end the meeting, sir?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So, on the behalf of our management team, now I can declare that. So, today's session is over. We'll meet tomorrow at 10:45 for the new session. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice rest of the day.